Morning mist clings to the rose garden as an old wooden gate swings open onto Derek Underwood's Kent country home. A peaceful scene far removed from the days he spun Australia into knots on damp wickets. What does life look like for England's spin wizard once the crowds have gone? Here, English cottage charm meets American farmhouse comfort. A Vermont country retreat tucked into the south of England. Today, we'll step inside this home to explore his fortune, lifestyle, and the journey from a Kent schoolboy to a 297-wicket legend and MCC president. But first, let's look back at the turning points in his career and life. Derek Leslie Underwood was born on June 8, 1945, in Bromley Maternity Hospital, Kent, England, to Leslie Frank Underwood and Evelyn Annie Wells. Cricket was in his blood from the very beginning. His father, Leslie, was a right-arm, medium-pace bowler who turned out for Farnborough Cricket Club, and young Derek grew up watching him with wide eyes. The sport was not just a pastime for the Underwoods, it was the family language. Derek's older brother, Keith, also played, and together the boys spent countless hours in the back garden, with Derek honing the accuracy that would later make him one of the most feared bowlers in the world. He attended Beckenham and Penge Grammar School for Boys, where his talent became impossible to ignore. At just 16, he delivered a performance that has gone down in school folklore, all 10 wickets for the first 11 against Bromley Grammar School. To make it sweeter, his brother Keith captained the side that day. That match did more than make him a school hero. It cemented the sense that cricket was his destiny. Underwood made his county debut for Kent in 1963 at just 17 years old. From the outset, he showed an extraordinary maturity in his bowling, able to exploit even the slightest dampness in the pitch. In that very season, he became the youngest player to take 100 county championship wickets in a debut year, a record that announced him as a prodigy. It was a sign of things to come, for he would go on to repeat that 100-wicket feat 9 more times. By 1966, his relentless accuracy and subtle variations earned him a Test debut against the mighty West Indies at Trent Bridge. It was a trial by fire, but Underwood never looked overawed. Over the next decade and a half, he carved out a reputation as England's greatest left-arm spinner of the modern era. His numbers still speak volumes: 86 tests, 297 wickets at an average of 25.83, including 17 5-wicket hauls and 6 10-wicket match performances. Two moments stand out as turning points in his career. The first came in the summer of 1968 at the Oval during an Ashes decider. With the pitch still wet from a heavy thunderstorm, Underwood was in his element. As the clock ticked down in fading light, he scythed through the Australian batting, taking 4 wickets in 27 balls to square the series. The crowd erupted, and the name Deadly Underwood, a moniker given for his ruthless precision, was etched forever in cricketing folklore. The second defining moment came during the 1970-71 Ashes tour of Australia. In the 7th Test at Sydney, England were desperate for victory. Underwood, ice-cool under pressure, dismissed Terry Jenner to seal the series and bring the urn back to England. That win was not only a personal triumph, but also symbolic of Underwood's ability to rise when the stakes were highest. His dominance was later confirmed by the ICC's retrospective rankings, which placed him as the world's #1 Test bowler from 1969 to 1973, peaking with a near unattainable rating of 907 after a 12-wicket haul against New Zealand. But like many great players of his era, Underwood's journey was not without controversy. In 1981, he joined the Rebel Tour to apartheid-era South Africa, a decision that earned him a 3-year ban from international cricket. It effectively ended his England career, with his final Test appearance coming earlier that year against Sri Lanka. While the move was criticized, it also reflected the complicated landscape of cricket politics at the time, where players often weighed loyalty against financial security and opportunity. Through it all, Underwood remained loyal to Kent, his home county. Over 24 years, he played 676 first-class matches, taking an astounding 2,465 wickets at an average of just 20.28. He was the epitome of consistency, a bowler who could be relied upon season after season. Remarkably, for someone known almost exclusively for his bowling, he did manage to carve out one shining batting memory, his only first-class century in 1984 against Sussex at the age of 39 after nearly 600 matches. These qualities made him both a legend and a folk hero in Kent, where his career began and ended. And it was in Kent, away from the roar of test match crowds, where Derek Underwood built his sanctuary. Kent Country Home, the spin wizard's timeless English lifestyle. Pull off a winding lane outside Canterbury, and you're suddenly in a different world. Under a canopy of beech and chestnut sits a detached country home that looks as if it's been waiting for an oil painting. Think Vermont farmhouse crossed with a Tudor English cottage, gables under slate, soft cream render trimmed by dark oak beams, and a wooden gate that creaks open like a prop from an old village cricket pavilion. For a man nicknamed Deadly for what he did to batsmen on damp wickets, it's a surprisingly gentle base camp. Step into the reception hall, and you immediately understand why Underwood has stayed in Kent all his life. Oak beams span the ceiling, polished flagstones underfoot, and a staircase that sweeps up as though inviting you to pause and admire the orchard framed in the rear windows. It's a space that blends rural warmth with understated grandeur, the kind of entrance where muddy boots from the garden look as natural as MCC blazers at a luncheon. To the left, the drawing room gives away more about the man. An Inglenook fireplace dominates one wall, its brickwork darkened by decades of wood smoke, and cricket memorabilia lines the others. Framed scorecards from the Oval 1968, photos with Sir Alec Bedser, a ball signed by the 1975 World Cup squad. French doors open onto a flagstone patio, creating a breezy transition between the warmth of the fire and the scent of roses outside. For American viewers, think of a New England living room with a Hall of Fame's worth of baseball cards on the walls. The heart of the house is a proper farmhouse kitchen. An Aga range hums with steady heat, flagstone floors stay cool underfoot in summer, and a breakfast nook sits beneath a window looking out onto the garden. Here, Underwood still reads the papers over tea, a habit formed on tour long before smartphones. A pantry, utility room, and back door keep the flow practical. Nothing flash, everything functional. Off the kitchen is a garden room that could double as a cricket commentary box. Full-length glass panels frame the lawn like a widescreen, and it's here he's marked out a miniature wicket for his grandchildren to practice their spin. Underwood has joked that he calls it Junior Deadly's Academy. On a sunny Kent afternoon with the smell of cut grass and the sound of a ball landing in a child's hand, it feels a long way from the cauldrons of Melbourne and Kolkata. Upstairs, the master bedroom showcases vaulted ceilings with exposed beams and an ensuite bathroom complete with a roll-top tub that could have been lifted from an Edwardian hotel. Guest rooms double as a museum, full of MCC caps, photos from state banquets during his MCC presidency, and the odd bat leaning against a wardrobe. Friends who stay overnight say it's like waking up inside Wisden, only with better linens. The grounds are where Underwood's personality really comes out. Manicured lawns roll out like outfields, rose beds climb trellises, and a koi pond shimmers beneath an old willow. The potting shed has been converted into a bar cheekily dubbed Deadly's Den, stocked with Kentish ale and county anecdotes. A double garage houses a classic Jaguar, understated, British, reliable, much like his bowling. Beyond that lies an orchard whose apples go into homemade cider, which Underwood bottles for charity raffles. As he likes to say, the only thing missing is a Duckworth-Lewis chart for the weather, a nod to the damp conditions that made him famous. But exactly when he owned the house and how long he lived there remains a mystery, especially after his death in April 2024. And while the home captures the essence of his personal lifestyle, it also raises the question of how a man of his stature and career navigated the financial realities of cricket in an era long before million-dollar contracts. Income and net worth. For all his fame on the field, Derek "Deadly" Underwood lived a life of modest financial reward compared to today's sports superstars. At the time of his passing in April 2024, his net worth was estimated at just under $1 million. His income began with the bread and butter of county and test cricket. Playing for Kent from 1963 to 1987 and representing England in 86 tests between 1966 and 1982, he earned seasonal wages and match fees that were a far cry from the lucrative contracts of today's players. In the 1970s, a test appearance paid about £210, roughly $500 at the time, while county retainers provided another steady, if modest, stream. Across 2 decades, his core earnings from match fees and county salaries likely totaled between $200,000 and $400,000. The bigger windfalls came from international tours and series bonuses. An Ashes triumph or overseas campaign might add several £1,000s in extra pay. For example, the 1976 to 1977 India tour earned him £3,550, around $8,000 at the time. Combined with tour stipends and victory bonuses, these opportunities could push his peak annual income into the £7,600 range, or about $18,000 in 1970s money. Over the course of his international career, such tours added another $50,000 to $100,000 to his lifetime income. Like many cricketers of his generation, Underwood also benefited from the tradition of county benefit years. His came in 1975, when Kent staged special matches and events in his honor. These benefits often produced lump sums between £20,000 and £50,000, equivalent to $50,000 to $120,000 at the time, and represented a vital pension-style payout for players who lacked the million-dollar contracts of later decades. Alongside this, modest sponsorships with bat and ball manufacturers provided supplemental income, though never at the scale of modern endorsement deals. Post-retirement, Underwood's earnings slowed but never disappeared. He took on honorary and leadership roles within cricket, most notably serving as president of the Marylebone Cricket Club, MCC, in 2008. These positions carried stipends, expenses, and prestige rather than major paychecks. Occasional commentary stints, coaching advice, and appearances at cricket functions kept him connected to the game while adding perhaps $20,000 to $50,000 over the years. He also dipped into writing. His 1975 autobiography, Derek Underwood and Contributions to Cricket magazines, earned small royalties and speaker fees, but they were never intended to be money spinners. At most, they added another $10,000 to $30,000 across his lifetime. Unlike today's stars who leverage broadcasting contracts, sponsorship empires, and 2020 leagues into multi-million-dollar fortunes, Underwood's generation played for pride first and pay second. Yet, what his net worth lacked in zeros, his legacy more than made up for in richness. And part of that legacy was how he chose to give back, not just to cricket, but to the community that supported him throughout his career. Philanthropy. One of the causes closest to his heart was Lord's Taverners, the UK's leading youth cricket and disability sport charity. Underwood was not just a donor in name, he was hands-on, serving as president of the West Kent branch for many years. He lent his time and presence to fundraising events, dinners, and cricket days that directly supported young people with disabilities or from disadvantaged backgrounds. His involvement wasn't ceremonial. He often turned up in person, chatted with participants, and mentored young cricketers who might not otherwise have had access to role models of his stature. Another lifelong commitment was to the Primary Club, a unique charity with its roots in cricketing culture. Known as the Cricketers' Charity for the Blind, It raises funds to provide sporting and recreational opportunities for the visually impaired. Underwood served as a long-standing patron, lending his name and credibility to campaigns that might otherwise have struggled to gain traction. The primary club's ethos, using cricket to empower those with significant challenges, was a natural fit for a man who had always valued fairness and inclusivity. By consistently backing their efforts, Underwood helped the charity expand its impact, ensuring that blind and visually impaired athletes had the resources and facilities to thrive. His commitment to philanthropy did not stop there. Even in his home county, Derek made sure that future generations of cricketers would benefit from his legacy. After his passing in 2024, the Kent Cricket Community Trust, KCCT, launched the Derek Underwood Fund in his honor. This initiative, seeded with over £10,000 in its early months, was designed to support youth cricket development across Kent, regardless of social background or ability. Its focus on inclusivity reflected the values Underwood championed throughout his life. That cricket should be a game open to all, not just the privileged few. And while his philanthropy tells us much about the values that drove him, it is in his personal life, his marriages, his family, and the private battles he faced, that we find the most intimate portrait of Derek Underwood, the man behind the legend. Personal life. In 1973, he married Dawn, the woman who would stand beside him through the highs and lows of his cricket career. Dawn's role was often understated in the media, but those who knew the couple recognized the strength of her support. She was there when Derek made one of the most controversial decisions of his career, joining Kerry Packer's Cricket World Series in the late 1970s. For Underwood, the move wasn't just about cricket politics. It was about ensuring financial security for his family in an era when cricketers were far from wealthy. The couple had two daughters, Fiona and Heather, who remained the pride of Derek's life. Although he was fiercely private about his family and rarely allowed them into the public eye, he often spoke in interviews about how much they meant to him. When asked about the motivations behind his long career, he frequently pointed to his family as his anchor, the reason he endured long tours, difficult schedules, and even the occasional backlash from controversial decisions. After his separation from Dawn, Underwood had at least one subsequent relationship, but details remain deliberately vague. True to his reserved personality, he never invited public speculation about his private life, preferring to keep the focus on his cricketing contributions. His later years were spent more quietly, surrounded by close friends, family, and the Kent community that had always been home to him. Health was another area where Underwood seemed blessed. Known for his remarkable fitness, he defied the injuries that plagued so many of his contemporaries. His bowling action, efficient, smooth, and without unnecessary strain, allowed him to keep playing at the top level until the age of 42. Teammate Alan Knott once remarked that Underwood had cricket fitness in its purest form, rarely missing matches and always seeming ready for the next challenge. Even in retirement, he carried himself with the same steady rhythm, never known to complain of chronic illness or debilitating conditions. It was therefore with a sense of quiet shock that the cricket world received the news of his passing on the 15th of April 2024 at the age of 78. There was no long public illness, no prolonged struggle, just a peaceful farewell, fitting for a man whose approach to life was understated but deeply impactful. Kent Cricket, the club that had been his professional home for 24 years, described his death as a huge loss to the game and the county. The tributes poured in quickly, reflecting the universal respect he commanded. Richard Thompson, chairman of the England and Wales Cricket Board, captured the mood best when he called Underwood one of the finest spin bowlers this country has ever produced. From former teammates to modern players who had only studied his highlights, voices across generations acknowledged the debt English cricket owed him. With his passing, English cricket lost not just a great bowler, but a bridge to a different era, a time when skill, endurance, and humility defined the game. Derek Underwood left behind not only records and honors, including his MBE for services to cricket, but also a family who knew him as more than just deadly. They knew him as husband, father, and grandfather. It was a fitting reminder that behind every sporting legend lies the story of a man who balanced tradition, family, and profession. And for Derek Underwood, that balance remained intact right until the end. If you loved this inside look, please hit like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss our next deep dive into the homes and lives of sporting legends. Your support is what keeps these stories alive and growing. Thank you for watching this video, and see you in the next videos. Goodbye.